Welcome to Literary Libations with Librarians. And this time we are super excited because March is Reading Month, the best month of the year for, librarians. As we share our titles that make us excited about reading, if you'd like to get your hands on any of them, there's several ways to go about doing that. The first and probably list is to call your local branch of the Monroe County Library System and talk to the staff there, and they'll be more than happy to assist you. If you'd like to go online and request a physical version, a hardcover, or an audiobook on CD, you can do that through our online catalog, and that address is on your screen now. You'll see that some of our titles are available digitally through one of our apps, and the Monroe County Library System provides two different digital platforms. The first is Libby, and you may also hear Libby referred to as Overdrive. They are sort of rebranding, so we're going to be trying to move over to Libby as we talk, but they are the same thing. So if you go to your app store, search for Libby, and Libby offers downloadable ebooks and downloadable audiobooks and also magazines. And the other platform is Hoopla, and Hoopla offers downloadable ebooks, audiobooks, and also movies, music, and graphic novels. And the great thing about Hoopla is if you see the lightning bolt next to a title, that means there is never a wait for that, even if somebody else has it checked out. I am Jennifer Korneski, and I'm the community librarian at the Dundee branch. And our introductory question for this time, since March is Reading Month, we're going to share what our favorite month of the year is. And I can definitely say it's not going to be any of the summer months for me, not a summer person. So I think I'm going to go with October. October has the weather's finally cooling down here in Michigan. I love fall weather. I love Halloween and spooky decorations. We also have a lot of fall birthdays in my family, and October is usually the time when we all get together. And so we get family time, we get the weather that I enjoy, we get Halloween. So I'm going to go with October as my favorite month. Also joining us this week is Kristen Brown, a reference librarian at our Bedford branch. And what's your favorite month? Ooh, Kristen may not be with, are you moving? Okay, you looked frozen. I was like, oh no, we lost Kristen and I didn't realize it. So you gotta move for me every once in a while. So what's your favorite month, Kristen?
Actually, mine was going to be October also for many of the same reasons. So I love fall weather. I'm usually ready for October like now. Even though I love summer, I am a Leo. My birthday's in August and I love warm weather completely, but I love Halloween. I love fall time. Just like you said, spooky decorations. That's when you start easing into the cooler months where everybody's getting together, and October is nice because you can still do all the outside things, but it's not super sweaty. So I would have to agree with October.
I agree. Good choice, Kristen. Also with us is Kelly Beister, our branch technician at the South Rockwood branch. And what's your favorite month, Kelly?
So initially I was going to say August because I am also a Leo and it's the whole month is my birthday. It starts on August 1st. But I think my favorite would have to be June because it's just coming into that warmer weather. So it's comfortable. You know, you start doing all the fun vacation things. The kids are out of school. That's what I'm most looking forward to. So I would have to say June is my favorite month.
Nice. Thanks, Kelly. And finally, we have Jen McCarty, who is a reference librarian at our Ellis branch. And what's your favorite month, Jen?
Because I also am a big fan of birthdays, I'm going to go with my birth month, which is September. And it also has a lot of sort of the good things about the same as October. I'm also a fall person. In September, like you have some really nice days and then it starts to get colder and you have my birthday and we have a lot of other family birthdays. There's actually like 4 people in Ellis Reference that have birthdays in September. So September is just kind of a party for my life. And it makes me happy. And I'm also a nerd and I love the back to school time. So Kelly's like, let's get done with school. And I'm like, let's go back. So I like September.
Excellent. Thank you, Jen. And now we're just going to start sharing some of our books that just make us happy to read and that we hope other people will pick up and read. And I'm going to ask Kristen if she would kick us off.
Okay. So these are books that I picked up a while ago. The gardening one I picked up a little more recently, but I'm super excited that I did. And I will start with the Lunar and Biodynamic gardening. So I have a garden every year. It's something that my husband and I started back when we bought our first house. And now that I work at the Bedford branch, I'm also in charge of the community garden and bed loan project that's here. And I'm always looking for ways to improve gardening as far as doing more of an organic practice, working more in tune with the natural cycles. And so when I was doing some research on some different methods, lunar gardening came up and I was like, what? This is crazy. I think this is super fascinating. And the lunar part of it is exactly what it sounds like. You plant and prepare and tend to your garden based on the phases of the moon. And it goes a little bit deeper than that because it's not necessarily just the phases. There's different positions where the moon is at, where it's closer to the earth or farther away, where there's certain things that you want to do. But if you are familiar at all with the moon phases, you will know that when it is a waxing moon, that is when you want to do your sowing. When you have a new moon, to probably like your first quarter, that's when you want to start sowing your seeds, getting your plants ready, things like that. And then as you reach the waning season, that's when you want to do more of your pruning and cutting back and things like that. So if you are familiar with the moon phases and kind of how the energy works, waxing is when that energy gains. And then as you go to the full moon, then that energy starts to wane away and you're releasing things. So it's really interesting. The biodynamic part of it, I have not exactly mastered yet, but it's just, it actually, I guess, was introduced by an individual in the late 1920s. And so it's considered like the first kind of organic practice that existed. And so what you do is you use plants to create like sprays, like liquid fertilizers, things like that, that you use in your garden instead of using traditional pesticides and things like that. And so it works a lot with companion planting, knowing what kind of plants to plant together that will help your harvest be better. It'll deter bugs and stuff like that. So for an example of that, in my garden, I have marigolds that will be around the sides, and then yarrow will also be, which yarrow is an herb if you don't know, but it will be planted within the plants also because it attracts butterflies, but it's also really good to keep off certain pests. So it's just really fascinating that we have all these tools available to us without needing to invent the wheel. It's just there, it's here for us. This book has a lot of really beautiful pictures in it too. There's a really great introduction by the author. So it's just a really fascinating book. It's definitely something that I'm working with, but I was super excited to find it. So.
Peace.
And then for my second book, this one's kind of been life-changing. I'm going to just speak real quickly about Women Code because that's not one that I focused on especially, but it's Elisa Vite, and she has kind of coined the cycle syncing method. So Women Code just talks about how, and I should start off by saying this isn't necessarily just for women who were assigned female at birth. This could be anybody that considers to be female. So if you identify as female, this could still be something that you work with. But for Women Code, she just talks about how as females, we live in a 24-hour cycle, which is not the way that we naturally live. As female entities, as being a woman, we run on a 28-day cycle, which means we wax and wane through our cycles. It's not like we get up every morning and we have the same kind of energy and we should eat the same kind of foods. So in Women Code, she kind of sets the foundation for that and explains that. But in the flow is when she kind of gives you directions on breaking down the cycle and what you should eat during each phase, how you should exercise during each phase, And the biggest thing that struck me with this is just you will naturally need time to slow down. And I feel like even at a young age, that's not something that we're really taught. You know, like we're always taught to kind of go to this level, like you can be as good as any guy, right? Like women are just as capable as any man. And the thing is we are different than men. We don't process the same way. And so we are going kind of against the way that our cycle naturally works, because we have to constantly be at this system that doesn't really cater to the way we really function. So just a couple examples. At the beginning of your cycle, which it's generally 28 days, it's different for everybody, but at the beginning is when you should be eating like lots of vegetables and fruits, like kind of it also pairs up with Chinese medicine. So that first part of your cycle is actually your warm part. So you need to eat cooler foods to cool down your system. And that's when you want to have a lot of probiotics, because you're really cleansing your body at the beginning of that cycle. And then as it goes through your cycle, towards the end is when you want to eat really warm foods. You want to eat lots of soups, lots of roasted vegetables, things like that, because it's the cooler end of your cycle. And she also goes through at the beginning of your cycle. That's when you have the most energy. So do that cardio, do that hard running, do those things that like you don't necessarily want to do, because I don't really know anybody that likes to do cardio. Although I do enjoy running therapeutically, but it's not something I like to do all the time. But do that then when you have your energy. And then as the cycle goes on, you can get into like strength training, slow down a little bit, do your yoga. Napping is an exercise towards the end of your cycle. Like take that time for yourself. And also it also connects also with the moon phases. So at the beginning of the cycle, it's the new moon. You have your energy, and then as the full moon comes, your energy goes away. And so it's just been really interesting. It really blends. It's really easy to get started. There's different avenues that you can go into it. So even if you don't want to like revamp everything that you're eating, you could just, there's certain seeds and nuts that you eat during each cycle. So you could just make sure that you're eating sunflower seeds during this one, because they're going to give you that nutrients. What I liked about this book is she is a doctor. It is backed up scientifically, and she references scholarly articles, case studies, things to kind of back that up. And as somebody who is a student and who is in research, I appreciate having that information so that I can go back and do a little bit more digging in areas that I'm specifically curious about, and just knowing that this is stuff she's pulling from experiences and not something that she's just necessarily intuitively saying. So it's been really interesting. I really enjoy it.
That's fascinating. All sorts of stuff that I never thought about nor heard of before. Also, I'm just going to say my biggest takeaway, napping is an exercise.
Yes. Yeah. She's like, yeah, during this time, rest, sit down, nap. And I think that's huge, because a lot of times, and especially if you have a full-time job and if you have chosen to have kids, it's a lot. It's a lot to do all of that. So when you do want to sit down and have a nap, or when you do want to just take some time and do nothing, you kind of feel a little guilty, because you feel like the more you're doing, the more productive you are. But really, if you take that time and rest, you're going to have more energy for when you need to have that energy. So you can kind of plan and get your things done in a smarter way so that you're not struggling later on. So
Interesting. Thank you, Kristen. And I'll have Kelly share next her March is Reading Month titles.
So our young adult book for grown-ups just read Bad Girls Never Say Die last month, and it was so good, and it has really stuck with me. It takes place in the 1964 in Houston, Texas. And the main character, Evie Barnes, she's 15 years old. She comes from a middle class working family, kind of on the other side of the tracks. And she is a good girl until her older sister, finds herself pregnant on prom night and has a shotgun wedding and moves away. And Evie starts questioning what she wants in her life. Her mother just wants her to find a good boy that she can marry and have a good life with. And it's not necessarily something that she wants. So she's starting to question her limited roles and what her options are. One day she sees her next door neighbor, who is a Mexican American. I think she's 16 because Evie's the youngest. So she goes over, and Juanita is her name, and she's a bad girl. She wears thick eyeliner. She has crazy high hair, and she does what she wants with her 2 other friends. So Juanita takes Evie in under her wing and kind of brings her into the bad girl group. One night they go to the drive-in, and the tea sippers, which are the rich kids from the other side of town, are there. And while Evie's getting popcorn, she sees a girl who is a tea sipper and is getting trouble from other tea sippers. So Evie steps in, says a couple things, defends this girl's honor, even though she doesn't know her and she knows that she shouldn't because it's not the group that she should be interacting with. And the girl smiles and walks away. Later on that night, Evie goes to the bathroom by herself and she gets attacked by Jack from the other side, the rich kids. She gets attacked, and just as things are starting to head in a really bad direction, she passes out, and when she wakes up, the girl that she defended is standing over her, covered in blood, and the boy is laying lifeless next to her. She finds out the girl's name is Diane. The 2 of them flee the scene, and it begins her journey of questioning what is a bad girl, what loyalty, what friendship means. As her and Diane become closer and they share this connection, she finds out things about Diane that blow her mind. Diane got pregnant from one of the kids on the other side of the tracks, and she is totally just cast aside by her rich parents who think she's embarrassed. One of the things that blew my mind is this is taking place in '64. Diane is pregnant and she gets sent to a maternity hospital to fill out her pregnancy. I didn't even know that was a thing, and I feel really silly for not knowing that was a thing, but I was like I knew it was a thing, but not in the 60s. Like I thought that would have been like, I don't know. It just blew my mind. So she stayed and did her pregnancy in this hospital. And there's twists and turns. There's all kinds of awesome connections about feminism and how far we've come in that aspect as gender and that kind of thing. It was really well written. There's a lot of partnerships and connections with S.E. Hinton's Outsiders, just the female version of it. So it was really good. It kept me on my toes. I'm usually pretty good at predicting, what's going to happen, but this book proved me. Like I thought I knew what was happening, and then I was like, what? So this one has really stuck with me, and I find myself thinking about it a lot. So that has been one of my good reads this year. The second one's a little bit more uplifting, and it's just one that when I'm struggling, I just go and look at these pages. It's called Herding Cats, and it's part of a series. My mom got these for my sister and I for our birthdays. Well, she each got us a different copy. And like the books that the Hyperbole book that we've read that we always say we pick up when we're feeling sad, this one is similar to that, but it's a little less reading and a little bit more like graphic novel instead of like a narrative. But there's little, like the slides in there are just so relatable. Like the cat one. So we have 2 cats. We have an inside cat and an outside cat. And the outside cat we named Bob Vance, but then he turned into Bob Pants, and then we call him Babadook. And now I'm pretty sure like when his friends come over or he goes to hang out with his friends, they're like, "What's your name?" And he's confused because we call him all kinds of different names. And then, or the text messages, like I never remember to hit send, or I'm like, oh my gosh, why didn't that person respond to me? And I'm like, oh, because I responded in my head. I didn't even put it in the phone for anyone to. Okay, cool. So then I look like a jerk because I didn't respond. And then what was the other ones that, oh yeah. Oh, my time management. I have the time management skills of a carrot. I always wait till the last minute, and it's something I'm working on. But good grief, does it make me feel so much better that I'm not the only one, as well as my alarm clocks. I always try to set one and then get up when it goes off, but I either end up pressing the snooze 50 million times, or then I just set like 3 more alarm clocks after it, which just drives my husband insane. He's like, pick a time and get up, like seriously. But I'm always so hopeful at night when I set them. So it's just kind of these little antidotes make me feel a lot better on the days that I'm struggling, where am I being a good mom? Am I being a good, like I'm trying my best, and I know that I'm not the only one. And then at the end, she talks about being an artist and the struggles, and like this one focuses on the internet. So it's like the doom and gloom of internet, but also the positivity of the internet. So it's really good, and it's a really good read.
I just find it funny that somehow folks who are, I get up at the first alarm, somehow end up with folks who are like, I set my alarm an hour early so I can spend that hour hitting snooze. Like, how does that happen? Because I am very much a first alarm person. I'm like, when it's time, it's time. Otherwise, I'm going to sleep until then. Like, I don't need like an hour of like up and down. And my husband happens to be like I'll start setting it a half an hour before I actually need to get up so that like start waking up. So
that's so funny, because I am the snoozer and my husband is the one that gets up, and he does the same thing. He's like, why are you, I literally have 4 alarms. And he's like, what is the point? You have 4 alarms, but then you snooze them all. Right. So he's like, now you have like 5 minutes in between all of us. You keep snoozing them.
Same.
So yeah, nope, it's time to get up. I'm done. So thank you very much. I also liked the one with all the names for the animal, because yes, I'm pretty sure Barbara knows her name, but she also just gets other names. Mostly it's Beautiful. She's Beautiful Barbara. Sometimes she's Miss Barbara when she's having a moment, but usually she's Beautiful Barbara. So good times. All right, and let's have Jen share her books.
Right, there it goes.
There you go.
Couldn't find my unmute. Okay, so both of mine are solidly in my normal reading, fantasy, science fiction. One's a little more fantasy, one's more science fiction. So, all my interests. So the first book I'm going to talk about is The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. This is the first book in a trilogy. It's the, I don't remember what the official name of the trilogy is, but incredible story. I recommend reading them all, but Bear and the Nightingale is the first book. It's set in Russia in like the 15th century, and it follows primarily one family, primarily one person. But when the book starts, we meet Vasilisa and her family. And in the beginning, actually the very, very beginning, she's not born. Her mother has discovered she's pregnant with her, and her mother is very frail, and she pretty much says, I'm not going to survive having this baby, but you need to make sure, she tells her husband, you need to make sure that she is born and grows and she's going to be powerful. To kind of allude to the fact that her mother was something else, maybe a witch, maybe something, her mother had power. So, Vasilisa is born, and she's kind of different. She looks a little bit different. She's wild. And this is a time where girls get married. That's their job. You get married, you fight for your family, whatever. Her family is, her father is a boyar, which is kind of like a prince. It's in Russia. It's part of the Russian, it's not officially Russia at that time. It's, a lot of little different sort of princedoms and Russian history, whatever. But anyway, Vasilisa, as she ages, she realizes that she can sort of see these things that are part of Russian folklore. So they'll have like spirits that this particular spirit, the Domovoi, guards the oven. And we give him some little scraps and he keeps us safe and he protects our house. And she discovers that she can see these things and no one else can, but she can communicate with these things. And this is also when the church is coming in. So all of the spirits of Russian folklore are starting to wane because they don't have the belief that they used to have. Her mother does pass away. her father eventually decides he needs to remarry, and he, kind of a political maneuver, the Prince of Moscow says, you know what, marry my daughter, because he wants to get rid of his daughter because she also can see these things. But where Vasilisa sort of accepts it and is like, oh, this is cool. This is who I am. I see these things. She takes it, her stepmother takes it as a curse. And I am, shamed and damned because I see these things, because she's very involved in the church. And this is not okay. I'm seeing these demons, basically, is how she sees it. So the first book kind of sets up sort of this battle between them. And then there's also this sort of underlying thing between of the winter knight, the king of winter. And he's sort of this death character, more or less, in Russian folklore. And he has a brother who is summer, but also is known as the bear. And as Vasilisa gets older and comes more into sort of her power, she connects more with the winter knight. And there's this whole, I'm not doing this book justice. I'm making it sound way more complicated than it is. But it really is a take on Russian folklore and Russian fairy tale. And you have this incredibly powerful character in the center of it who knows she's different and knows she's not meant for the world of women at the time. She doesn't want to go get married. She wants to explore. She wants to see the world. She wants to maybe fight. And throughout the first book, particularly, it's her becoming who she is and standing up for what she wants, while also being a part of the sort of mystical world that, most of her family is not okay with. Her stepmother is definitely not okay with it, because her stepmother sees it 100% as a curse. And this new priest comes to town who kind of plays them against each other because he just wants power. This book is so incredibly beautifully written. I'm not a historical fiction person generally. The author put a ton of work, actually studied Russian literature and Russian history before she became an author. So there's so much based in fact, with just a twist of the sort of fantasy and fairy tale and folklore. So beautifully written. If you're interested in history, I think you'd like it. If you're interested in fairy tales, I think you'd like it. If you're interested in folklore, I think you'd like it. I really feel like this is a book series for just about any reader. And I loved this book. I immediately read the next two. My book club read it, and we have a couple people that generally don't like anything we read, and they liked it. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about this. It's been on a lot of best book lists for the last 5 or 6 years. Fantastic book, fantastic series. Bear and the Nightingale.
It's been on my to read list forever.
It's so good.
I had it checked out when the requests started coming through for your book club. So I had it checked out for a few months because nobody else had wanted it. And I was like, I'll get to it. So I willingly gave it up. And someday I am going to get to it and read it, because it sounds like it's something I'm going to end up loving.
It sounds good.
It's so good. And like I said, my description does not do it justice at all, but so good.
I love folklore stories.
Yeah. The next book I want to talk about is called Red Rising. This is also part of a series. There's 3 that really are part of a trilogy, and then he's written I think there's 4 and 5, maybe 6, that kind of continue the story. Really, the first 3 are the main story. This is definitely more science fiction. So it starts with Mars. Darrow is part of a mining family, and the society is now broke up into colors. So at the top you have the golds. They're sort of the gold standard of humans. Basically the society has more or less done selective breeding and possibly some genetic kind of things. So golds are tall and strong, and they have golden hair and golden eyes, and they're fancy and they're fabulous. They rule the society. And then you go down, different colors are sort of, I hate to say the word bred, but basically bred for different things. Pinks are pleasure. They're taught from a young age that their job will be to pleasure, primarily the golds. grays are like your police officers, your mercenaries, that sort of people. And Darrow here at the bottom is a red, which are sort of the dregs of society. And they're basically slaves, but they don't know that. He's a miner. He's a part of a mining colony in Mars. And they live under the surface of Mars. And for, generations, they've been told that they are helping make the world habitable. Hey, keep doing this in another couple hundred years, we're going to be able to colonize Mars. Well, Darrow he's young, but he's married. The Reds only have, like a 30, 40-year lifespan. So he's like 15 and he's married. His wife knows that this is not okay. And very early, she basically sacrifices herself for more or less rebellion. And Darrow discovers that they've been lied to. Mars is already, not only is Mars habitable, Mars is colonized. It has been for hundreds of years. And so is the rest of basically the rest of the solar system. So from Venus to the outer reaches of the solar system, mankind has colonized the entire thing. And the Reds and the mining believe, hey, we're doing this good work. They've been taught, you're doing this great thing. You're helping us get ready for, in the future, your generations are going to live on the surface. Well, they already do. So basically, he gets into this rebel group that their goal is to sort of destroy the civilization. And they basically turn him in from a red to a gold and have him infiltrate society. And so the first book, Red Rising, is him basically getting his transformation from this red little kid to this gold, ideal person society, and goes to their very, very secretive school, which of course is unlike anything anyone could have prepared him for. And then the subsequent books are sort of basically Civil War and what comes with, from that. But really, really cool take on kind of Hunger Games-esque in a lot of ways, in the fact that the school is kind of a competition where like anything goes. It's looking at like humanity and like what we've done to each other. This is obviously set way in the future, and they idolize like Greek and Roman conquerors, and they talk about them a lot, like, oh, we're just doing what our ancestors did. We're making things better. And it's obviously, this is not a great setup where you have people that are basically, from birth, hey, your job is to pleasure other people. Ugh, that's gross. But Darrow is a fantastic character. And then, of course, as he sort of grapples with the whole world, am I red? Am I gold? He finds he likes some of these people, but they're his enemies. And so it's really, really good and really, really complex, and a fantastic book and a great series. And if you are all interested in like science fiction, I highly recommend this one.
It is a really good one. I think I read that in like 2 days.
Yeah, I read it really quick, and I read the second one really quick. I'm actually on the fourth one right now.
Yeah, because the second one is Gold something, right?
Golden Sun and then Morning Star.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good book.
These have been on my list for a long time, and I've been following Pierce Brown on Instagram because I love his mind so much. So, eventually one day I'll get to those.
Somebody else kept recommending them to me, and I was like, oh, they look so thick. And I know, it sounds hard. And I finally read the first one and really, really liked it. So then I basically read the next two fast. And I
need to move it up, especially since science fiction isn't usually my go-to. So I struggle a little bit when I have like a recommended read like that. I'm like, I know it's good, but it's out of my comfort zone. So I'll have to move them up in my list.
Once you get to the part where he's in the school, it definitely is very much like I said, a kind of Hunger Games-ish. Basically, they're in different houses, and it's just a battle. It's warfare. Like, they're not learning, math and science. They're learning, how to rule.
Oh, right. The basics. Yeah. Pretty casual.
So, you kill your fellow students, their fault for not being strong enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And on that note, thanks, Jen. And my titles, as Jen said about hers, they were in her wheelhouse. Mine are very much in my wheelhouse. So, you know, you're going to get some thriller, you're going to get some horror coming at you. The first one is The Plot by Jean Humph Corlitz. And I read this one in a weekend. So it focuses on Jacob Finch Bonner, who early on in his writing career managed to get one pretty decent literary title out. You know, it was kind of a mid-list seller, which for literary fiction is pretty good. But now that's as much as he's managed to achieve. And now he is a professor at a fine arts kind of third-rate program. And he has a student that comes in for his meeting. I know, even the kitty wants to hear about this. You're going to love it, kitty. So the student comes in and is like, I already know that my book's going to be a blockbuster. It's going to be a bestseller. The student doesn't listen to anything that, and I just love that it's Jacob Finch Bonner. It's such a name of kind of a jerk. So the student tells him that. The student's a jerk, very arrogant, claims that he's got this plot for a book. It's going to be a blockbuster. There's no way that it won't be. Jacob Finch Bonner's like, well, tell me about it. And the kid's like, no, you know, it's going to be a bestseller. I don't need your help. And doesn't want to submit it for like review or anything. And then the student dies. And through various ways and means, Jacob Finch Bonner gets a hold of this plot that the student had started. And he publishes it under his name. And sure enough, it is a blockbuster. And so now his dream has come true. He gets to go on book tours and he gets to sign books for people. And it's incredible and amazing. If you know thrillers, you know what's going to happen next. It doesn't matter that the student died. Somebody out there knows that Jacob Finch Bonner is a big liar and stole this book from the student. And so he starts getting threatening notes. And so you get that whole storyline and who else knew about the student's plot that he may have shared it with, and why is that person threatening Jacob Finch Bonner. The other thing that you get in this one is this book that, you know, they're talking up that it's guaranteed to be a bestseller. You get excerpts of that book as well in between this thriller of who is after Jacob Finch Bonner. So it is definitely a page turner. Is it going to change your life? No. But if you just need something to, you know, you just want to escape from the world, or you want something that's going to keep you turning the pages, The Plot by Jean Humph Corlitz should fit the bill. The other one is more of my typical horror, and it is The Lost Village by Camilla Sten. And she's a Scandinavian author, so this is a translation. And man, those Scandinavian thriller and horror writers can write. And the blurb for this one says that it is the Blair Witch Project meets Midsummer. So if you've seen either of those, they're both horror films. Midsummer is kind of a niche horror film. It's folk horror set in Scandinavia, and it's weird. Like, I don't like the sense of dread that you have watching it. But yet the whole time it's bright and sunny in Scandinavia, and they're like, oh, this is super fun. And you're like, no, this is bad. It's so bad. You're not sure why it's bad. It's bad. So just that description, I'm like, okay, well, now I have to read this, even if it doesn't live up to that. And it comes pretty close. So Alice is attempting to get a documentary made about the town of, and I'm probably not going to pronounce it right because it is a Scandinavian name, Silvertjärn. And in this town, she's heard about it from her grandma. Her grandma left when she was a teenager. And then shortly after that, about 800 people lived in the town, and they all disappeared. Just gone. They didn't leave to go someplace else. It was a mining town. They weren't found in the mine, you know, like there was a mine accident or something. They were just gone overnight. So this has been a mystery for about 50 years, and now Alice wants to do a documentary there. So she gets a little team together, she gets the funding together, they all go to Silvertjärn, and of course things go terribly wrong because it's a weird place. and weird stuff happens and people get hurt. And of course, the whole time you're wondering, so what happened to the people? And you do get an answer to that. I will say, if you're not, you might not like the answer that you get, but there is an answer. It is not an open-ended, like some novels are open-ended, like, I don't know what happened, it's just over. This one does have an ending. You might not love it. I was kind of torn on it. If you read it, let me know your thoughts on the ending. But if folk horror and that whole, we're doing a documentary, it's a group of young people who are together and bad things start happening, if that appeals to you, again, I think this can fill that slot for you. So there you go. So thank you to all of you for sharing your books that make you happy about reading and that March is reading month. Thank you to those of you who listened. We hope that you are reading amazing things. And next time we are going to be sharing books that make us smile. So we hope that you'll tune in then, and thank you very much. Bye.